Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, readers of all persuasions. It is I, Gayla, and welcome back to Look Unquote and Caffeinated. And let's get started because I read 12 books this month. Oh my God. So I'm going to be using my iPad a little bit because I'm taping on my phone to kind of bring back to my recollection what these books were about. I read a lot this month, mainly because I had a week off in the middle of the month, and so I was able to read a lot. So I did just that. I enjoyed the time off. It was the first time in a long time that I can I didn't have anything planned or to do. I can change plans if I had made plans. It was a wonderful, restful vacation, one that was needed. So I got a lot of reading done. So let's get started. And I read also audio. I did a bunch of things. I did audio, I did e-reader, and I did physical books because I just had the time. So anytime I was in the street, I did my audio book. But when I was home, I was going back and forth between my e-reader and physical books that I had just picked up because I bought a lot of new books in January. And a video about that is about to come up as well. So let's start off with the first book, A Tale of Two Cities, a Valentine's novella, and I'll put them up on the screen. This is by Alexandra Warren. She does a lot of novellas for the holidays, so I read one she did for Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, New Year's, and this was the Valentine's Day one. And this is about two people that came together and spent their Valentine's Day together based on a dare. So their FMC was, talking to her friends and looking online and saw this guy. I think he was a basketball player, if I'm not mistaken. And she DM'd him, and he DM'd her back. And they went on this little Valentine's rendezvous that could have went to the left real fast, but it didn't. So it was a cute little novella. It was spicy or whatever. So it made its purpose. It was a seasonal read, so that was a good read. Then the next book I read, which I've been raving about all month since actually the time that I got it. You've probably seen a couple of videos. It was like book of the week, suggestion, all of the things, most anticipated book, and that is If I Rule the World by Amy Dubois Barnett. This is about a young lady who was an editor-in-chief in the 90s at a magazine, and ups and downs of being a woman in charge in a very sexist environment, and just her struggles. And a lot of people think this is Amy's story, even though it's fiction, because she herself was an editor-in-chief during that time, and she did like Essence, later on Honey. She was very immersed in the culture of music and fashion. So it may not be her direct story, but probably the stories of people that she worked with during that time. But it's an excellent book. I suggest it. It's probably one of those books I would read with my eyes, because I did listen to it with my ears because I didn't have the physical copy the day it came out. But I thoroughly enjoyed this book. The next book I read was the last book in the Set Me Free series by Genesis Carter, called Free to Fall. So this was the third book about within this group of friends. The MMC was a fighter, professional fighter. The FMC was a R&B singer. And they were in this friend group, and you would think it was enemies the lovers, but I said it was frenemies the lovers, because they always kind of like had this banter with one another. And then one day they took it to the next level, and their friends didn't know at first, and they wanted it that way because they wanted to keep something for themselves, because they both were popular in the world in which they lived. And so they wanted to have a little slice of heaven. That didn't ultimately work out. Someone found out about it, like the gossip blogs. But it was really a cute read to see how a man struggles with wanting to be there for a woman, but also wanting to follow their dreams. And the same thing for her, not wanting to mess up, what they had going on professionally, but also wanting to find love for themselves. So this was a good good book. The other book that I read about so much that I read during this month, with a tail end of January, and finished this month, was With Love from Harlem by Rashonda Tate. This is about Hazel Scott, the pianist, and it really showed her as a pianist and as a influencer as far as music is concerned. She was very talented, but she struggled a lot in the realm of love, loving men that were not great. She was married to A. Philip Randolph. Nope. Adam Clayton Powell. Sorry. She was married to Adam Clayton Powell. And the struggles of coming up and being like a reverend's wife, but not traditionally being what people think a reverend wife should be. She was popular in her own right. She was young too when they married. She was like 22, 23. But also he married her after divorcing his wife because he had an affair. He was having an affair with her. More of an emotional affair. They did not get physical until after he was divorced, but an affair is an affair. And so people in the church really didn't take to her because they felt like she broke up the initial marriage. But if you read this book, Powell wasn't all of that. He had his things. So yeah, let's not always blame this on the woman. Let's not always blame this on the woman. He had his things, and it made me look at him differently. I'm not saying what he didn't do for the people, but yeah, it made me look at him a little differently. So, but I enjoyed this book as a historical fiction. I suggest you really pick it up. The next book I read was The V-Day Getaway. So this was by Lauren Lacey. She also wrote a very popular book this season called A Night with Miss Grinch. I picked both of those books up after, but I did V-Day Getaway with my ears until I got this book, but it's a novella as well, which was a plot twist. It was two people being in love. The MMC loving on the woman. She didn't really believe that she was capable of receiving that love. And he was like, no, I love you, and I've always have, and I always will, no matter where you came from. The plot twist was she was the one that went to jail. So in her younger life, she, was rebellious, did all these things, and she went to jail. But after coming out of jail, her family were well-to-do, and they had a business of their own. So they entrusted her with being the head of that business, because it's hard to find a business when you get out on felony, right? So her family was in a position to do that. The only thing it was missing was love in her life. So this young man, she grew up with. So and he's always been infatuated with her, and he was like, I don't care where you've been, what you've done, like, this is us. So they went away on a V-Day vacation, which was awesome, because that had never happened to her, and she never thought it would happen to her. The next book that I read was titled Beneath His Stetson. And so this FMC and this MMC really had a plot twist at the end, which was super, super interesting, is because they met at a bar. They go home together. They do all of the things. When I say they did all of the things, they did all of the things. But the plot twist to this was they were a married couple. And this was like their night out. And they just wanted to do something different and to revive their relationship. And so what I really learned from this is that, yeah, you can be with someone a long time. You can be with someone that you love, but sometimes if it gets stale, how do you stay together? I always ask myself that. How do people in 20 and 30-year relationships stay together and be faithful to one another or work through their ups and downs? And they needed a minute. And so they created that moment for themselves. So that was super cute because it was super spicy for strangers just to meet one another. Like, I thought about it from the perspective of, oh Lord, like they couldn't do this in this day and age. Like, you don't know if he was a killer or he had something or whatever, but they were a married couple looking to like reset their relationship. So it was a cute, spicy read. The next book, another book I've been talking about a couple of times in my videos, is Thick of Love by Danielle Marcus. This was a great read. It had its ups and downs. It's a romance. It's about three friends going through their love relationships. One, was in a 15-year long relationship and her partner married someone else. The other one, struggled with who she was gonna date and was kind of like, I don't know if I want to date you. There's a lot going on. What's going on? And then the last one dated one of the friend's brother, and he was arrested the day they got engaged. It was a really, really good book. It was spicy. It had its ups and downs. It made you go through all the emotions. Like, at one time I caught myself being mad, especially at the guy who went and married someone else. He had unrealistic expectations of his child's mother. Like, he can date, he can do what he wanted. He cheated, but when she moved on with her life, he was like, what are you doing? Maybe you should get back together. He always tried to sabotage it. So during their story, I was quite angry all the time, but it was a really good read. I really suggest you pick this book up. And it's a book that I picked up I wouldn't normally pick up. I went to like a new bookstore. I wanted to buy a new book by an author I didn't know, so this was a great choice. The next book I read was Ivy's League by Nia Forrester. So I read, I think, about 2 books by Nia at this point, and I enjoyed both of them. So when this one became available, I was definitely wanted to read it. It was quite an interesting story. It was about a young lady, FMC, who kind of did all the things for herself. She had her lifestyle. She had her own home, her place, whatever. She was very influential in the political arena. You know, she had a great job. Kind of really didn't need anyone. She just needed love. And then she met this guy who his status was not as, his financial status was not as astute as hers. And but he had his own business, but he had a relationship prior where his wife or partner, I don't think they ever got married, partner just did him dirty. Had a child, left the child, never wanted to do anything with the child. So he had to raise his child by himself, but also kind of lift himself up from the financial ruin she left him in. And so the Ivy and him always had an issue because he always felt like he had to pay for stuff and be there financially. And she was like, I didn't ask you that, I just asked you to love me. So this was a really interesting story. It started off super slow in the beginning, but it was, I say, push through it if you pick it up. The next book, Finding My Bodyguard, was super interesting. By A. Blossom. So this is about 2 people who are immersed into the mafia culture. So the FMC kind of was promised to another mafia family. And then the MMC was was a part of a 3rd family who was trying to get out of the life. So he got out of the life. And he became a doctor, which kind of disgraced his dad because he was a plastic surgeon, but he was a doctor nevertheless. And then the 2 of them met because she was going to have work done because her intended husband wanted her to change her body. And he wouldn't do it. The doctor wouldn't do it. He was like, you're lovely, you're wonderful, you're all the things. And so a lot of stuff happened to get her out of the life of being a mafia's wife. But he had to endure a lot of killing, very spicy. They just both didn't want to be a part of the cartel anymore. So this was a really good book. Then I read People of Means by Nancy Johnson, new author to me, not new book to the world. This book is about a mother and a daughter in 2 different times. The mother found herself immersed into the Jim Crow era, went to school during that time in Tennessee, and the daughter found themselves being a part of the era of Rodney King. And it kind of is a historical fiction, so it went back and forth about their experiences and what happened during race and all of that during those times. And it's not hilarious, but it's funny to think that even now, if another book was written or another character was added to the story, that we still would be going through the same thing as Black people. And that makes it kind of sad. It was a really good book, but it makes it sad because some of the things that I see in the book from the Jim Crow era and from the early 90s with Rodney King is still happening today. So it's unfortunate, but it was a good read. You learned some things during those eras. The next book, Secure in His Heart by Riley Baxter. This is part of the Baxter County Blues. So this is 3 books. Excuse me, it's 3 books. But this first book is about one of the brothers. So they're not biological brothers, but they were 3 young men 3 young boys that came up in the foster system together and lived in the same home. This is about the first one, Masani, and his experience. What made this book different for me? Yes, it's all the things. It's spicy, it's the things, it's ghetto. I wouldn't say ghetto, but it's, super like, I'm gonna punch you in your face, we robbing, we stealing, we surviving, right? But the one thing that made this story super, super unique, and I'm on the 2nd book as we speak, is that the FMCs in these books are like praying women. So Masani meets his FMC, his love, because he was shot and she was the nurse in his on his unit that night. And what happened was she was praying for him while he was in a coma, and he remembers hearing her voice. And so when he woke up out of his coma, he recognized that was her. And also his brothers, made him realize that was her, because one day they caught her praying for their brother. They was like, what you doing? And then she wasn't on duty one night, and he had a like really restless night, and they was like, yo, where that nurse at? She need to come, because that's the only thing that calms my brother down. So that's how they got together. But the praying aspect of this book was very, I like that what A Blossom did with that, because you don't, if it's not like a Christian book, you don't really see how faith is intertwined in books, not in that specific way, because these was like prayers, and she used the word God, and they went to church and things of that nature. And I like that, you know, being a Christian woman myself, it doesn't always look traditional to people in organized religion, but the fact that she worked that in there, I love it. So I'm interested in seeing how this series continues. And last but not least is Love Jones. I literally read this last night. So today is March 1st. And so I literally read this last night, the last day of February. And this was about a couple who met in college, and they went through something really horrific during college. So it drew them apart for years. And now they're in like their 30s. And the FMC owns a bookshop, and he shows up at her bookshop because he's the featured author that is coming in to do a book signing, but he has a pen name. So she had no idea it was him. And she has always, you know, had some regrets about their time in college and how their relationship ended. And so this kind of forced them to have that conversation. And it was a good conversation, spicy. Ultimately, you know what happens. They get back together. But the storyline is a great storyline, and how they got back together. And it's a novella. And I feel like it's by B. Nicole Anderson. Sorry if I didn't say that. And it was a full-fledged story. Like, I would have liked to seen a little bit more added. And I think someone said that too. Like, you would have loved to see a little bit more added with this. But it was a great book. I'm looking forward to reading more by this author. But for a novella, it had a lot of depth. And I enjoyed it. And it was the last, I was like, I gotta get one more book, and I gotta get a love book. And also by a Black author. I think all of these were by Black authors. I want to say they were, and that was very intentional for this month. So they were either Black authors that wrote about love, or Black authors that wrote about historical fiction. So yeah, I had a very interesting reading month. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Sometimes when I have reading months like this, I'm like, what I'm gonna read next? And I have all these things that I want to do and read, and I'm in the midst of reading like 37 million books. I think book readers always know that. So yeah, I'm just gonna kick back, enjoy this Sunday, figure out what I'm reading for March. I already know what I'm reading for March for the most part. I'm starting to read it. It's not as many books. I think I have like legitimately like 5 books, maybe 4 that I actually want to read. And they're not like novellas. They're big books, and they're also books that are on my shelf and I want to crack their spine. So they're going to give me, I have to be a little bit more intentional when I read, you know, because I have a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9. So if I get through these 4 or 5 books this month, I will be super happy. I'm not trying to set a goal. I have a goal just because I'm on Goodreads, but I don't have a goal like I'm going to stick to. I just put 52 books. That's a book a week for the year. I may go above it. I may go below it. I usually go above it. I'm not really pressed. I'm just trying to read the books that's on my shelf. And so, yeah, I'm going to be doing that this year, just trying to tackle the books on my shelf. Not saying I'm not going to buy any books, but tackle the books that are on my shelf. So in doing that, enjoy your Sunday. It's kind of like cloudy in New York. It's one of those days you want to read. So that's what I'm going to do. So do all of the things. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next video. Deuces. Bye.